Hey everybody. We are recording a little reaction here to Game 3 before we tip off Game 4, which is tonight at 7:30. I'm recording this on Monday morning. The Knicks down 2-1. They lost on Saturday afternoon, evening, whatever, 105-86 in a game that was really over early. It was over very early. Let's put it that way. But before we talk about that, I just want to mention that obviously, if you haven't done so already, please hit like and then subscribe to the channel. That would be a huge help to us. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So if you can do that, if you haven't already, that would be a massive help. All right, let's talk a little bit about Game 3 itself. I think the best way I can put this game is, and I I'm very happy I was not able to do the post game, and that I've had a day or whatever to really think about it, digest it, what we saw, everything, and going back watching a lot of the game again. I've got to say, I think the Knicks lost this game in the first 16 minutes. And yes, part of that is guys missed shots, but I don't. I personally feel very strongly that the poor percentages we're seeing across the board, the inept offensive play that we see across the board, and that was really just at its lowest ebb on Saturday, is tied to Tibbs' choices with rotations and starting lineups. And to that point, okay, you want to start Josh Hart because Quentin Grimes is still coming back from an injury or whatever the reasoning is. Fine, I'm okay with that. You can't go that entire first quarter and the only sub you make is Hartenstein for Mitch at the 4:30 mark. That's unacceptable. And it's unacceptable because look at how Miami is defending. Okay, watch how they're defending Josh Hart. Look at this, okay? This is from the first quarter of the game. This is Josh Hart right here. This is Brunson. Now watch this. Watch Strus. Look at Strus. He's not even paying attention to Josh Hart. Okay? Jimmy Butler, he's got RJ Barrett in the weak side corner. He's not even defending him. He's not looking at him. He's standing in the paint. He already has 2 feet in the paint. So you've already got 3 guys right here that are in the paint. Gabe Vincent, who's on the ball, and Bam, who is about a step outside of the paint. Watch this. Keep going. Okay. Strus, again, he's defending Josh Hart, who's not even in the picture here. He's like somewhere right here. He's not even remotely worried about Josh Hart. He's not. He's just here to help Jalen Brunson. So Jalen Brunson, yeah, he has a mismatch, and he bullies Gabe Vincent. Look at where he is. He's underneath the basket, and he can't finish it because Strus has no care in the world. Comes over and blocks him. And look at this. Look at there's. By the time Brunson goes up with this shot, all 5 Miami players are in the paint. That is what that lineup spacing is right now. And yes, I agree. RJ Barrett needed to hit more shots on Saturday, and Jalen Brunson missed some shots that you would have bet on him making, and quickly did not. He was only 2 of 8 from 3 when he came in, and Julius Randle was terrible. I don't know what was going on with Julius in this game, but he was really, really bad across the board. His effort, his energy level was unacceptable. I understand all those things. Guys need to shoot the ball better. I get it. You're not making life easy for guys like Brunson and Randall and Barrett, who are downhill players who want to get in the paint, and we know that's what Tibbs wants them to do. When the guy that their kick out options are so poor, and like I think Josh Hart is shooting better from 3 in the playoffs than Quickly and Grimes and even Brunson probably. Fine, I get that. You can't tell me they defend these guys the same way. Look at how they're not defending Josh Hart. They're not defending him. And this, I could have clipped any number of plays. I just picked this one because it was very, very straightforward. It is impossible to score efficiently, consistently with this type of spacing. It's asking so much of Brunson, basically. You're asking him to be on a heater from the perimeter, and we know that he's probably playing on a bum ankle too. So that's not easy either. Mitch hasn't been great in the series. This is not a great Mitch series. I don't like the matchup for him. I've been consistent on that. I think Hartenstein needs to play more. Hartenstein did play more in this game, although some of that might have been related to foul trouble issues. But like this spacing is unacceptably bad, and this is what is so frustrating to me personally about this is I don't expect Tibbs to outcoach Eric Spoelstra. Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. You know, if your expectation is that Tibbs should be going toe to toe with Spoelstra tactically, I think that's a ridiculous expectation. What I do expect from Tibbs, though, is to stick with things that got you here. And I understand, right? Josh Hart had to step in because Quentin Grimes got injured, and Randall had an injury in the playoffs, and I understand all these things, right? Randall re-aggravated his ankle, I should say. I get that. But to veer so far in a different direction now, and I think what really is irritating for me is I can just about accept that maybe game 1 and game 2, Grimes is working his way back, fine. But once you close game 2 with Grimes playing high leverage minutes, playing a lot of minutes in a row consecutively, I don't think the argument that, well, he's still working his way back from an injury, I don't think that flies. And I just don't really think the moves that he's made are helping us in any way. And I actually feel that if at best they have been a net neutral move for the starting lineup and unquestionably a negative move for the bench. And we should remember the bench was maybe the biggest strength of this team, especially in particular after they acquired Josh Hart. He really helped take that group, which was solid, and turbocharge it into a team that blitzed opponents every night. You've taken that away, and I think there is a trickle-down effect, not so much on Quickly, who I think is just struggling with some confidence issues. I liked his aggression on Saturday. I don't think it was necessarily particularly ideally guided. I think he forced some shots. I think he probably went too far in the opposite direction from, being a little bit passive to being too aggressive hunting for a shot. But I think the guy that is really hurting is Obi Toppin more than anybody else. He's been terrible the last couple of games, and we saw in the regular season when we got Josh Hart how much it helped bring Obi to life, in particular offensively and in transition, getting out. And now we're not seeing any of that, and that's really hurting us in a series like this where our offense in the half court, even as I can sit here and talk about playing this lineup and that lineup, the spacing. Half-court offense is going to be difficult in this series just because that is what Miami does, and that's what Eric Spoelstra does. So to not get those cheap run-out baskets is really hurting us, I think, even more. But in general, I just think Josh Hart with that bench group gave us a better dynamic. And, Hart in that starting lineup, he's never going to have particularly high usage because, as we know, that guy in that lineup all year has been a spot-up shooter. That's been Quentin Grimes. And we know over a long sample, you can tell me Grimes is struggling with a shot. I believe over a longer sample, he starts making more threes. I have confidence in him as a shooter. I think you have to trust the longer samples. I think you have to trust what we've seen over his career that the shot will come around. And if you're not getting much usage from that spot offensively anyways, I would much rather it be Grimes than Hart. Whereas I think on that bench group, Hart has a little more latitude to create, and it helps lean into some of his best habits and best qualities, I guess is probably the better way to put it, as a player. His secondary playmaking, his transition playmaking, his ability to grab and go on the defensive glass. I think his defensive rebounding with the bench was a very key component in helping turn them into one of the elite units in the league. And taking that away has really hurt them. And I don't think it's actually juiced the starters in any way. I mean, you could argue that it's taken away from the starters as well, given the spacing issues. So I think that's a really big mistake. I thought the lineups for the first about 15 minutes of the game were just a total mess. I talked about the first quarter where it was just basically the starters, and the only thing that changed was Hartenstein coming in for Mitch. The second quarter, I don't like starting the second quarter, and it's quickly RJ, Grimes, Obi, Hartenstein. That's not a group that even played much in the regular season. I think they played 37 minutes together as a unit or something in the regular season. So it's just not a group that's played much together. And I mean, they looked like it, right? They were totally out of sorts. By the time Tibbs calls a timeout and makes another sub, it was 25-44. That was a 19-point game. That's like the game finished as a 19-point game. So basically from 8:02 left in the second quarter to the end of the game, it was more or less even. Now, obviously, it's not that straightforward, and I think it's fair to say that throughout the game, Miami outplayed us. But you punted on basically 15, 16 minutes of the game with lineups that just didn't have any juice, and his adjustments were so slow. His unwillingness to shake things up really cost us early in that game. And I think from that point on, when you're playing from behind, it's really, really hard against a team that's as disciplined as Miami. And you're playing into their hands. You gifted Eric Spoelstra the margins, and he's gonna punish you for that. So that was just a really poor performance from the Knicks, and in particular from Tibbs. We can talk about and I agree. You want to start talking about the players, and quickly had a bad game. Randall was awful. Brunson didn't have it. Nobody had it, right? When everybody has a bad game, I think that speaks to some degree a coaching mismatch. And I don't mean that in the sense of, Tibbs is not even worthy of being on the sidelines in comparison to Spo. No, what I mean is in this game, his initial game plan, his initial strategies were not particularly effective, especially on the offensive end. And his unwillingness to adjust bore out and hurt us for the entirety of the game. Whereas you look at a guy like Spo, and he's always tinkering. He's always playing on the margins. He's always trying to find an edge. Whereas Tibbs just he expects to win by out executing you based on his initial plan, and his lack of willingness to adjust when things aren't going to plan really, really hurts us in games like this. Again, like Miami's playing basically with Bam at the center, and he's, a 6'9" center. He's obviously a very, very good defensive player. Definitely has a very interesting habit of jumping and hurting various Knicks ankles at this point. He's gotten 3 guys, gotten Brunson, Quickly, and Randall this season. So must be just a big fucking coincidence with this guy. But Bam is a 6'9" center. Like, is that a situation where you could try Randall at the 5 and put Hart at the 4 and try different things? I think it is, but we know Tibbs doesn't like doing that. He likes playing with the 5. He almost always plays with the 5. He actually did go with Randall and Obi at the 4 and the 5 in the fourth quarter, but the game was over by that point. And if he goes back to that at some point, if he tries that in the next game or in the series moving forward, I would really respect that, even if it doesn't work, because I think it's important and it's almost necessary in the league now today to have coaches that are willing to try things like that and experiment with things like that, especially situationally. And this is a situation where, hey, look, the offense just is stuck in mud. How can we maybe juice this thing? How can we find more space? How can we create more space? That's an option for you. And maybe that helps get guys into rhythm. Maybe that helps Julius snap out of whatever the hell he was going on with him last game. Maybe that helps Brunson get better angles driving to the rim, give him more space. Maybe that helps RJ Barrett get to the rim easier. I don't know for sure. But if you don't, you can't win the raffle if you don't buy a ticket, right? You've got to give something a shot. And that's just one example. I don't even think it needs to be that. It can really just be as simple to me as going back to the lineups and rotations as much as you possibly can. The ones that got you here. Starting Quentin Grimes, moving him to the starting lineup, that helped turn the season around. That helped turn the season around. If he can close game 2, I'm sorry, he can fucking start game 3. I don't want to hear about injuries at that point. It's not about injuries. If he can close and play the highest leverage minutes in game 2, he can start game 3 after 3.5, 4 days off, whatever the hell it was. Okay. Now, as critical as I have of Tibbs, I did not feel good about this game at all going in. I tweeted about it that morning. I think you give Spoelstra 3-4 days to prepare. That's a huge, huge advantage to him. And it's a huge advantage to Miami, especially given the age of their team. These long turnarounds really help them out. The fact that there's only been a day between these games, if Tibbs can make some tweaks to the lineups and the rotations, and I understand Quickly's probably not going to play tonight. Thanks again to Bam Adebayo, who definitely is just a very, very innocent player. If Tibbs can just at least go back again closer to the lineups and the rotations and everything that was working so well, especially the back half of the season, especially after the Hart trade, I think the Knicks have a decent shot of pulling this off. I still believe they have a better roster. Miami has the best player in the series. I don't think that's a question. Jimmy Butler is fantastic, and he was incredible defensively, especially in Game 3. We saw his value there. But I will still take the Knicks roster from 2 to 10 over Miami's. And I know they haven't played to that level. And yeah, some of that's coaching, but some of that is just guys have to play better themselves. I still believe in this team. I still think the talent is there. And if Tibbs will at least be more willing to put them in the situations that helped get them to this place, in the lineups and all that stuff that helped get them to this place, I like their chances of pulling this off. I think they can get the split tonight. But it has to start from him, and then it has to start with your main guys taking advantage of that stuff. Take advantage of the increased space if Quentin Grimes is out there, right? If Strus isn't going to just be hanging off of Quentin Grimes by 30 feet or whatever. Make better decisions. In Julius's case, shoot the fucking ball when you're open. How many threes did this guy pump fake on in the first half and drive? And between him and Hart, how many times did they do that in the first half? It was infuriating to watch. You've got to trust what got you there, and the Knicks, their players have to have the confidence to keep shooting threes, to keep pulling on those shots, because they are going to be available to them with how much Miami is selling out to stop the paint. You have to look for those shots, and then you have to take those shots with confidence. And I think if they trust that and they go to that, they can still win this series. So will Tibbs make those adjustments? I don't know. I would like to believe yes, because he has shown that he's willing to adjust as the season's gone on. He's been more flexible this year than I can ever remember him being. That's a credit to him. We need him to do it one more time. We need him to look at that starting lineup, look at how they're defending Jalen Brunson and Randall and these guys, and really consider, what do I need most in that starting lineup? I understand you want to respect Jimmy Butler, and maybe you love the Josh Hart matchup against him. I think you're showing way too much respect for both Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat when you do that. You have to try to you can't be so reactive to them that you're unwilling to play to the advantages that worked for you this season also. And we also should remember that Quentin Grimes has done a good job on Jimmy Butler defensively at various points, not just this season or in this series, but through his career. Even going back to last year, he had some really nice moments on Jimmy Butler defensively, right? So I think the Knicks have the capabilities. Tibbs has shown that he can press the right buttons, but he's got to do it now. They have no time to waste. They have no more margin for error. They've used up all their margin for error in this series already. It is time to get back to what got you here. Okay. Anyways, I hope everybody enjoyed that. Again, if you haven't done so already, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. That would be a huge help to us. Hopefully the Knicks pull out this game tonight to even the series at 2-2. If they do that, they have home court advantage the rest of the way. They can take this 7. But it has to start tonight. So, all right, that is our little my little reaction video for today and look ahead to Game 4. I hope everybody enjoyed this, and me and Stacey will be recording the pod after tonight's game, so that should be out tomorrow morning. Again, thank you, and go Knicks.